Canadians are reasonable and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake.
Fighting back as a cross-border trade war begins.
Donald Trump unleashes tariffs against Canada and Mexico. Tonight, the expected impact and the response. Good evening. Tariffs are no longer a threat. They are now a reality.
The move from our longtime allies suddenly thrusting our country towards an economic crisis. Leaders of all levels of government vowing to protect Canadians and take on Trump. CTV's Rahim Ladani joins us in studio tonight. And Rahim, we are now in a time of great uncertainty.
We certainly are, Michelle and Nathan. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says this trade war is Donald Trump's attempt at collapsing the Canadian economy because he thinks that will make it easier to annex Canada. But Trudeau says that will never happen, no matter the price to defend the nation. Outside the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa, demonstrators are denouncing U.S. President Donald Trump, delivering a message of Canadian resolve and sovereignty.
My mother is still alive. She has no idea why this is happening yet again. She's in tears. She's absolutely devastated. And most people are. So it's in my blood to stand up to the fascists.
After Trump followed through on his threat, imposing 25% across-the-board tariffs on Canadian imports and a 10% levy on energy, its northern neighbor is fighting back. Canada is applying 25% retaliatory tariffs against $30 billion worth of American goods. To give Canadian companies time to adjust their supply chains, tariffs on another $125 billion worth of U.S. products will take effect in 21 days' time.
Our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. tariffs are withdrawn, and not a moment sooner. And should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures.
The federal government's retaliation targets key U.S. sectors. Items such as orange juice, shampoo, and clothing may soon cost more for consumers on both sides of the border. To soften the financial impact, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government will expand EI benefits and increase supports for businesses. Some shoppers say they're already feeling the impact.
Normally I have 2 bags, today I have a small one. That's how it's going to affect me. It's going to affect all of us.
Talk of tariffs came to the forefront after the U.S. president claimed Canada wasn't doing a good enough job at stopping drugs at its shared border. Since then, Canada has announced a $1 billion border plan, saying fentanyl seizures from Canada have dropped 97% from last December to this past January.
Let that be a warning to all those who have preached appeasement. Donald Trump's arguments about fentanyl were always a ruse.
For Canadian auto workers, tariffs could quickly devastate their industry. Analysts fear North American assembly plants could start shutting down within a week.
We're all looking at a temporary layoff and a sit down and a shutdown if we can't get Washington to come to its senses.
With no timeline for how long this economic war may last, the country's largest private sector union says the tariffs are a call to arms for Canada to build a stronger economy.
Using the procurement dollars that we have in this country to build things in Canada and put Canadians to work.
Bracing for a serious impact on countless industries and people. On his social media platform, Truth Social, Trump is now vowing to match Canada's retaliatory tariffs. We may get more insight on that when the president addresses a joint session of Congress in a televised speech at 9 o'clock tonight. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Rahim. Meanwhile, Ontario's premier has strong words for the U.S. president.
Doug Ford spoke directly to Americans on U.S. television earlier today and held a news conference at Queen's Park, taking direct shots at Donald Trump's decision. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live tonight with the latest on the Premier's response. Siobhan.
Well, on the one hand, we saw Doug Ford apologize to Americans for his retaliatory measures. On the other hand, we heard him tell Ontarians the goal is to inflict pain to force a real negotiation.
A stone-faced Doug Ford aimed to level with Ontarians.
Today's a tough day.
A day that the United States hit its neighbor and ally with tariffs. A day that began with the Premier explaining to American TV viewers,
we do have to retaliate, and I apologize to the American people. It's not you. It's your president.
At home, making the goal of that retaliation plan clear.
I want to inflict as much pain as we possibly can until we get to a deal of the USMCA.
It means pulling American-made booze from LCBO shelves, blocking bars, restaurants, and other retailers from being able to buy it, barring U.S. firms from bidding on provincial contracts, and terminating an internet deal with the company owned by Donald Trump loyalist Elon Musk, a move that may come with a penalty.
This is principle.
Ford has some choice words for Musk, who studied at Kingston's Queen's University in the 1990s.
They should be embarrassed that he went to Queen's. He should be embarrassed to attack the people that took care of him.
Ontario is ready to escalate if the Trump administration follows through with more tariffs.
We will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export.
Enough to power more than 1 million American homes and businesses. If tariffs stretch into April, Ford says he's ready to turn the supply off.
I'm highly recommending to President Trump, don't force our hand. You underestimate Canadians, you're making a massive mistake.
Warning Ontarians the road ahead may get rocky, Ford repeated a campaign promise to help.
We'll retrain impacted workers for new jobs. We'll retool companies for new customers and new markets. We'll reshore supply chains to bring good jobs back home.
The opposition leader is urging the Premier to recall the legislature to collaborate on a tariff response.
If the Premier is good to his word, which is he wants a Team Ontario approach, that means everybody at the table together.
Ford insists he doesn't need the legislature, and it can't be called back right away after last week's election.
Our cabinet is active right now, and we can do whatever we need to do to protect the people of Ontario.
The Premier says government officials are going through contracts looking for more with U.S. ties that ought to be severed. It's something he says he's prepared to defend in court. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. And stay with us. We'll have more on our tariff coverage in just a moment, including a look at the troubling new reality for local businesses and the potential fallout.
But first, there is a special weather statement in effect for Toronto and beyond. We are in for a serious dose of rain. These mild temperatures mixed with the mounds of snow and frozen ground are a recipe for flooding and pooling on our roads. Let's bring in Lindsay Morrison for a look at the current conditions. Is the heavy stuff started yet, Lindsay?
It's on its way, Michelle. It hasn't really started, although we have had some wet weather today. I'll step aside so you can see the satellite and radar imagery, and I'll widen things out so you can see that the main event is still developing south of the border. It's a Colorado low that's going to bring us a good soaking through the night tonight and into tomorrow. Widespread special weather statement, rainfall and winter storm warnings to the north. We're anticipating anywhere from 15 to maybe 25 millimeters of rain by the time all is said and done. It's mild out there, 7 degrees in Toronto, 11 in Welland. We will remain above freezing tonight when that heavy rain begins. Coming up, we'll detail the potential for some flooding and talk about the risk of thunderstorms. That's ahead. For now, Nathan, though, back to you.
Thank you, Lizzie. Canadian businesses are bracing for the impact of U.S. tariffs, many uncertain about what's to come.
CTV's Sean Leathong visited 2 local businesses today, both in industries expected to be hit hard by these tariffs.
On the day tariffs hit, it seems like business as usual, walking through Ultraform Manufacturing in Etobicoke.
Very loud and yeah, very loud and yes.
But owner Casey Vasudeva says the effects of 25% are being felt immediately.
Right now, our sales are around, I will say, 700,000 a month, but it's dropping like there's no tomorrow.
The manufacturer of small auto parts says orders could shrink to just over 300,000 this month, and he says industry-wide,
it's going to collapse. We'll have massive layoffs there.
The products created here are mostly made from aluminum and used by all major car manufacturers, but tariffs are hitting them more than once.
One of the main issues for companies like Ultraform is raw materials. The aluminum you're seeing is purchased from the United States, but it's originally mined in Canada, sent down for refinement to the U.S., and brought back in order to make parts like this.
In North York, Conquest Steel uses all Canadian products.
On this line over here, we make window wells.
Using steel from Hamilton to make window wells and raised gardens, Managing Director Rahim Molu says they used to sell in both Canada and the United States.
After President Trump was elected, we started seeing a decrease in the amount of orders we were getting from our American distributors,
equating to a 20% loss in business. Now they're selling some products at cost to help mitigate the tariff pinch for themselves and for customers.
At times like this, consumers and businesses kind of have to redefine what the definition of success is.
Malu says their goal is to keep employees working and supporting customers. He doesn't expect American customers to return even if tariffs are removed.
The current deal that was ripped up was made by President Trump. So a lot of our American distributors feel that even if a new deal is miraculously reached, how do they know that it's going to be honored?
Malu and Vasudeva say the government must step in to protect their industries and focus on developing Canadian manufacturing.
From what we've seen, Canadians, when given the choice, more or less tend to prefer and choose Canadian products when provided that opportunity.
Okay, so why we are selling raw materials? Why don't we make our own product?
Vasudeva says he has a plan to build up domestic manufacturing in the long run that would create 500,000 jobs. Instead, there's the current fear of jobs being lost. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
One of the first places you will see fallout from the tariff dispute is on the shelves of your local LCBO.
Today, the provincial liquor retailer began removing U.S. booze from store shelves. CTV's Allison Hurst is live outside the LCBO near Danforth and Broadview. And Allison, you've been speaking with customers about the move.
Lots of them were rushing out to grab the last few things, while others were also making sure they grabbed local stuff. But yes, shelves inside this LCBO and others right across the province that once had American product on them are now empty. All of that alcohol boxed up and in storage for the trade war. Clearing shelves, boxing up all American products at LCBOs across the province.
Fight fire with fire.
Jason McCafferty rushed to pick up some bourbon, Bullet, and Maker's Mark, but he will be making a change.
Just stocking up before it's too late, but also at the same time picked up a Canadian version to see going forward, see how it tastes, and go from there.
All the product will be stored until tariffs come off, encouraging people to instead buy Canadian, as the Premier lobs a financial punch at the U.S.
We're the largest purchaser of bourbon in the world for Kentucky bourbon manufacturers. They're done, they're gone.
Most shoppers understand, but for some, it's hard to swallow.
I'll miss those California wines.
I think in the long run it won't accomplish much, but right now it seems to be the thing to do.
I believe in buying Ontario wine. There's some really good Ontario wines that people haven't discovered yet.
Choosing local options is exactly what the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association is recommending.
You know, these tariffs are a weapon to weaken our economy and our businesses and our livelihoods. And we should do our part in standing up for Ontario.
Not so easy when it comes to the tariffs on food.
Lettuce and tomatoes, potatoes and food safe packaging. Those are the things that we will really struggle with in terms of finding replacements. So we've asked for the government to look at exempting those from the second round of the retaliatory tariffs.
Omid Azad is feeling the pressure, having purchased cases of booze already on the menu at Beer Bistro and potential replacements.
We have to find the right choice for them, and then we have to at least 1 week, 2 weeks, the free samples to the guests to see that this is the right things for them. And it's all about increasing the cost.
He says some of the options are more expensive.
It's not fair that we pay for them.
A cost that will be felt until the tariffs come off. Restaurants Canada is also lobbying the government for exemptions for food from sales tax. They're asking for a wage subsidy program, and they want to have the removal of interprovincial barriers. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Back to you in studio.
Thank you, Allison. Still ahead tonight, the controversial plan to provide housing for people in need that has a GTA mayor flexing his strong mayor powers in an attempt to stop it. CTV's Beth McDonnell will have more from Aurora in moments. But first, it's welcome news for anyone who needs emergency assistance. Toronto police say 911 response times are improving.
And as CTV's Janice Golding reports, the city says it's all due to an increase in frontline officers.
It sounds like you're crying, so I'm going to send someone to make sure everything's okay.
When you call 911, it's with the hope help will arrive soon. But in October 2023, the average response time was 26.7 minutes. While that number dropped by 7 minutes in 2024, it still took close to 20 minutes to receive assistance.
So far this year, we've improved average response time down to
12.6 minutes. This decrease of 7 minutes represents an improvement of over 35%.
That's an overall reduction of 14 minutes in less than 2 years. And Mayor Olivia Chow says it's the result of the city's investment in new officers since she took office.
Over the past decade, our population increased by 35%. That's why the emergency services must grow with the city.
The city recently hired 306 new officers, many working on the front line. It plans to hire another 720 new officers over the next 2 years. The chief and mayor say various factors impact response times, most particularly the weather. For example, recently we've had a lot of snow and we know just how treacherous city streets have been. Still, the chief says the service remains committed to keep moving in the right direction.
And to be there when Torontonians need us the most.
The mayor also noted the city isn't just investing in more officers, but in more first responders across the board.
When you face an emergency, you need to know that someone will be there to help you out, and fast.
Janice Golding, CTV News.
A man is in hospital with serious injuries following a stabbing aboard a streetcar. Police were called to the area of Queen and Dover Court shortly after 1 p.m. The victim was taken to hospital in serious but stable condition. Police say they're searching for a single suspect. He's described as about 5'10" with a scruffy beard, last seen wearing a puff fur jacket with an olive-colored hood, dark jeans, and was carrying black plastic bags.
A man is in hospital after a shooting in the West End. It happened near Keele and Rogers Road around 10:15 last night. Police say the man made his own way to hospital and his injuries are not life-threatening. No word from investigators on possible suspects. And a woman was seriously injured in a hit-and-run in the city's East End. Toronto police say she was struck by a vehicle near Kingston Road and Glen Manor Drive at 5:30 p.m. yesterday. The driver fled the scene, and police have not provided details on the vehicle involved. The woman was taken to hospital with serious injuries, but she'll survive. The investigation is ongoing. The debate over a housing project to help vulnerable men in York Region is dividing a community.
Some councillors and residents are fighting to make the facility a reality, but the town's mayor is using his strong mayor powers to stop it. CTV's Beth McDonnell reports.
The Yonge Street property in question is near downtown Aurora. For years, there's been talk about building a men's emergency and transitional housing facility here to help York Region's growing population experiencing homelessness.
Using strong mayor powers, which 50 municipalities got, with the idea of speeding up the development of affordable housing, that just flies in the face of this. This has actually stopped deeply affordable housing.
This location was determined to be unsuitable 2 years ago, remained unsuitable a year ago, and continues to be unsuitable.
After town council voted 4-3 in favor of a motion last week for the region to consider the site, Aurora's mayor used his strong mayor powers to veto it, writing, "Use of the land could compromise its strategic purpose and may interfere with the delivery of infrastructure to support housing."
It was shocking in the sense that it's an affront to our democracy.
Councillor John Gallo put forward the motion after changing his mind about the project.
What's at stake ultimately is there are men that are going to be sleeping on the streets 1 year longer than they should.
Despite the mayor using his strong mayor powers, the fight for this project is not over, and there is still hope to reverse the veto.
We can have a special meeting of council, and we're planning on doing that because we think the public needs to know all the reasons why a veto was offered.
And residents speaking out about the plan are divided too.
We've had enough. It's gone through a democratic process and it failed.
A veto to stop a discussion. To me, that's extraordinarily wrong.
Supporters say the location is central in York Region. The project is shovel ready, and the 68 beds it will create are desperately needed. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
We're now on our top story, the start of U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods and energy products. On Parliament Hill today, the leader of the official opposition insisted Canada must fight back and outlined what should be done.
We must retaliate, targeting American goods in the following order. A, goods that we can make ourselves. B, goods we don't need. And C, goods we can get from elsewhere.
Pierre Poilievre also believes Canada needs to cut taxes to counteract the domestic impact of tariffs, and funds collected through retaliatory Canadian duties on U.S. goods should go to tax cuts, not government programs. The Conservative leader also insists new pipeline projects must be quickly approved to get Canadian energy products to non-American markets.
Meanwhile, the leader of the federal New Democrats is calling for an emergency session of Parliament.
I believe we should send a united message as all leaders and all parties that we stand united together, opposed to these tariffs, and we're going to impose these retaliatory tariffs with a unified voice, denouncing Donald Trump's attack on our country.
Jagmeet Singh says there must be support for workers, including an immediate reform of the employment insurance program to help people pay their bills. He also wants assistance for industries and a focus on creating good jobs in Canada during this challenging time. The Prime Minister suspended Parliament until March 24th after announcing he's stepping down.
And Mayor Olivia Chow was asked about the city's response to tariffs during a housing announcement in Scarborough this morning.
We will have a comprehensive approach after working with the federal and the provincial government. We'll listen to the announcement. The presentation will come to my executive committee, and I will have an announcement next week on, yes, the buy local, very important, and because small businesses really are supported by the local government.
We are also getting reaction from Mexico tonight after they were hit with the same 25% tariffs as Canada. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum says there is no justification for the tariffs and says her government will respond. We're still waiting to hear what that response will look like. Sheinbaum says she'll be providing more details this weekend. And China has responded after the U.S. doubled the rate of tariffs on Chinese imports to 20% today. China says it will impose additional tariffs of up to 15% on imports of key U.S. farm products, including chicken, pork, soy, and beef.
In Washington, the U.S. Commerce Secretary said he thinks Donald Trump will meet Canada and Mexico in the middle on tariffs. In an interview with Fox Business, Howard Lutnick said that will probably be announced tomorrow.
Both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today, trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because, you know, he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more and I'll meet you in the middle some way. And we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome. The president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Reuters is reporting that Howard Lutnick spoke with Canadian Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc today, hours after the U.S. tariffs went into effect. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly will reportedly speak with American Secretary of State Marco Rubio tomorrow. The American people will hear all about the tariffs against Canada tonight. They'll be among the issues U.S. President Donald Trump's going to talk about during a speech to Congress.
I would say that he's going to lean into it, and he's going to talk about how increasing tariffs can actually go and close the trade deficits, which January we saw a record trade deficit, particularly when it comes to countries such as Canada, Mexico, China, and how if we don't go and do this now, we're going to be completely wiped out by certain industries.
Tonight's speech will be similar to a State of the Union address. It's taking place 6 weeks into Trump's second term. He's expected to also talk about efforts to cut the size of the federal bureaucracy and reduce the flow of migrants across the U.S.-Mexico border.
Ukraine's president is now calling last week's contentious Oval Office meeting with Trump regrettable. Volodymyr Zelensky was berated by the U.S. president and vice president on Friday. Today, the Ukrainian leader said his country is ready to negotiate as soon as possible and is ready to work under Trump's strong leadership to get a lasting peace. Zelensky added Ukraine is prepared to sign a deal on rare earth minerals and security with Washington. Yesterday, the White House announced a pause in military aid to Ukraine. Zelensky says he was not notified of the move and is now seeking official confirmation.
In Rome, some upbeat news about the Pope's health. The Vatican says his condition stabilized overnight. The pontiff suffered 2 episodes of what was described as acute respiratory insufficiency yesterday, but there were no similar problems today. Pope Francis will return to using a mask to help him breathe overnight, but officials say he has no fever and is alert. He's being treated for double pneumonia.
Coming up on CTV News, signing up to avoid lining up. Registration is now open for thousands of spring recreation programs in Etobicoke and North York. We'll have those details just ahead.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, are you planning to go to a concert this summer? If you are, tickets could be more expensive if the artist is using dynamic pricing. It's a strategy to stop ticket resellers, but it doesn't mean your seats will be any cheaper. That story is just ahead.
Well, there's a couple of flood concerns when it comes to this week's rain and the melting snow. One is runoff, the other ice jams. So these are concerns in the late winter and now early spring. So the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority reminding people to stay away from waterways that include streams, rivers, and the Great Lakes because they're going to be running higher and faster, especially with the rainfall that we have on the way. A full look at your forecast is just ahead, and stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV. We'll be right back.
2024 is one of the highest grossing years for concert tours, and this year, record ticket prices are expected to continue.
If you bought a concert ticket recently, you know how expensive they can be, and there's a reason why that's happening. Pat Foran joins us with Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle and Nathan. When an artist comes to town, there are only so many tickets available, so the more popular they are, the more expensive the tickets can be. To battle against ticket resellers, some shows are now using dynamic pricing, meaning the cost of tickets goes up and down based on demand.
I would definitely say it feels like fans are being taken advantage of.
Nicolina Moscati of Toronto is a big fan of The Weeknd and wanted tickets to see his concert on July 27th.
I love that he is from Toronto.
She was part of a fan pre-sale but was shocked when the cheapest two tickets she could find were $852 for the 500 level at the Rogers Centre.
It seemed very much like the concert was selling very quickly, and that if we wanted to go, we would need to just pay the money.
After Moscati bought the tickets, The Weeknd added 2 more shows, and that's when she saw the same seats selling for $500 less.
The price I paid doesn't seem right, that they can just decide these prices on a whim and change them based on demand.
Baseball teams do it, football teams do it, airlines do it on a daily basis.
Music industry expert Eric Alper says while more artists are using dynamic or surge pricing, not all of them do. He says it's up to the performer and says the strategy makes more profit for the artists and promoters and helps cut out ticket resellers.
Based on the popularity of the artist, based on the amount of people who are going after those same tickets, the prices are going to rise and fall based on the demand.
Ticketmaster said tickets for the Weeknd's tour were priced in advance and did not change during the sale. It does say on their website, we have also helped teams and artists dynamically price tickets to ensure they rightfully receive the benefits of market pricing instead of their profits going to scalpers or resale ticketing sites. In Moscati's case, the tour decided to refund her the $852, allowing her to buy cheaper tickets for one of the added shows.
Thank you, CTV News. I wouldn't be in this situation without you, and thanks to your help, I'm going to be able to get great seats at hopefully a much better price and just enjoy my time at the concert.
And pre-sale tickets for another popular concert went on sale today for Sabrina Carpenter. At times, there were more than 50,000 fans trying to get tickets, showing just how popular these concerts have become. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Oh, well, hopefully you didn't wash the car recently because a lot of rain's going to be rolling in.
Yes, we're getting nature's shower and then some, right? Which I know some people are probably hoping, hey, get those mounds of snow washed away. It's still kind of hard to park in some areas, but this much rain at once, it can be troublesome.
Because you not only have the falling rain, but you have the melting snow. You have rivers and streams that still have ice on them. So depending on how much rain ends up falling, this could be a little bit of a recipe for trouble. Fortunately, we're not looking at massive amounts of rain. We're looking at a healthy amount, though. So we're going to be keeping an eye on rivers and streams around southern Ontario. We were out earlier today at the Rouge River, and as you can see, there is still a fair amount of snow and ice already. Water levels running fast. We can expect water levels to rise over the next day or so here, right around the southern portions of Ontario. We've got a widespread special weather statement in place. It's mild. There's melting happening. Rain is on the way, and the ground is still frozen in many areas, so it has a reduced ability to absorb that water. As a result, there ends up being runoff. So flooding is something, again, we're going to be keeping an eye on. Let's talk about this special weather statement. It's been in place now for over 24 hours, and it's warning of the heavy rain and the mild temperatures. Some areas are getting some wet weather right now in the GTA, mainly north and eastern sections. A little bit of a break for this evening, and then the main event is going to move in. It's a Colorado low that is going to give us a soaking. It's going to bring snow to northern parts of Ontario and Quebec. And yeah, if temperatures were just a little bit cooler, this could have been a snow event for us too. But instead, we're looking at around 15 millimeters of rain, maybe more than that in some cases, maybe up to 25 millimeters. And it really gets going through the overnight hours. So midway through the overnight, we also see potential for maybe a little bit of mixing for the north end of the GTA. As we're waking up and heading out the door tomorrow morning off to work and school, it's going to be a bit soggy out there. This will be some of the heaviest rainfall impacting the Golden Horseshoe. Then we'll get on and off showers in through the early part of the afternoon. Want to also mention the potential for some embedded thunderstorms for tomorrow. Don't be too surprised if you hear a couple of rumbles or see the odd flash of lightning. Then we get into another round of rain in through the evening hours. Behind this system, we're going to tap into some stronger winds and some cooler air for Thursday. And as a result, we do see a changeover to some flurries. We're not expecting accumulating snow, but it's just going to be a bit of a reminder that winter is not quite finished with us just yet. Look how mild it is right now across the U.S. Midwest. That warmth headed our way. It is 8 degrees right now in Windsor, even warmer than that, as we mentioned it in and around Niagara. Tonight, we remain above freezing. 3 is our forecast low. And then here's tomorrow at a glance. 7 degrees, the expected daytime high, along with a bit of an easterly wind. It's going to be a little bit cooler as we make our way into Thursday. Not just the daytime at 2 degrees, but look at that overnight low back around -5. Sunshine is going to return as we head into the day on Friday, but it's cool for the weekend. Flurries possible once again into Saturday. Temperature right around freezing for Sunday. At least it's looking pretty dry in through the early part of next week, and maybe temperatures will rebound again by about next Tuesday. That's the weather for now. Nathan, I'll send it back over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, the art of clowning around as a powerful tool for healing. How a fun form of therapy is helping young patients at Holland Bloorview juggle the realities of being in hospital.
It's been said laughter is the best medicine.
And a therapy program at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehab takes that to heart. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan explains.
Therapy clowns Nurse Flutter and caretaker Piccolo swoop in to greet the D'Amico family, especially 4-year-old Zach, who is a major hockey and dinosaur fan.
Oh, you look like you shed some weight on your tail.
Oh my gosh! Zach first arrived in October after falling ill Labor Day weekend, just before he was to begin JK.
And he started complaining about some neck pain. And when I asked the walk-in about that, and they said, you know, he could have slept on it wrong.
It was an enterovirus, which ordinarily would cause just a flu-like illness, but in Zach, it began attacking his spine, causing acute flaccid myelitis. At Holland Bloorview, he gets physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and music therapy.
But by far, his most favorite therapy is clown therapy. They have a way of interacting with him and communicating with him that helps to bring out his playful side that we thought we lost.
He learned the farting noise from one of the many great nurses here. So it's and that is his way of interacting and playing with the clowns, and they take that and they run with it.
This is caretaker Piccolo, Nurse Flutter, Zachary, and Austin. And we just want to say...
Nurse Flutter and caretaker Piccolo are why the D'Amicos are such great supporters of Capes for Kids. Clown therapy is exclusively funded through dollars raised by the campaign, which wraps up on March 7th.
The D'Amicos have a couple of milestone dates coming up, including Zach's birthday in less than 2 weeks and a projected discharge date of April 3rd, but there are many things that give them hope for the future.
He's got some limited movement back to his body. And we know that with this diagnosis, time is on our side, that things can return 6 months from now, 2 years from now.
Zach's young age and feisty attitude give him a definite advantage. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Registration for the city's spring recreation programs opened today for residents in Etobicoke and York and East York. People are able to register online, over the phone, or in person. There are nearly 134,000 spaces in more than 15,000 programs, including in arts, fitness, wellness, and sports. Registration for North York and Scarborough opens tomorrow morning at 7.
After the break, Canada and U.S. markets tumble as President Trump imposes tariffs, unleashing a trade war with Canada, taking stock of the turmoil just ahead.
Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake.
Updating our top stories, Canadians are digging in as U.S. tariffs take effect. President Donald Trump imposed 25% across-the-board tariffs, as well as 10% on energy. Canada's applied 25% retaliatory tariffs against $30 billion of U.S. goods and plans to expand EI benefits and increase supports for affected businesses.
I want to inflict as much pain as we possibly can until we get to a deal of the USMCA.
Provincially, Premier Doug Ford has pulled U.S. booze from LCBO shelves, canceled a major internet deal with U.S. provider Starlink, and is blocking U.S. firms from bidding on provincial contracts. The Premier says he will escalate actions to include a 25% surcharge on electricity and potentially turn off the power to U.S. customers.
Right now, our sales are around, I will say, 700,000 a month, but it's dropping like there's no tomorrow.
And Canadian businesses and industries are now trying to determine just how hard they'll be hit by U.S. tariffs. Some businesses are calling on the government to step in to further protect their industries and focus on developing Canadian manufacturing.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos or video of breaking news, let us know.
Stock markets tumbled, and some economists predicted a Canadian recession after the U.S. hit Canada with steep trade tariffs early this morning. Paul Bagnall of B&M Bloomberg has more.
Hello, I'm Paul Bagnall at B&M Bloomberg. Stock markets around the world fell today as investors reacted with concern at the prospects for a global trade war following the steep trade tariffs imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China by the United States. By the time North American stock markets closed today, every major stock market index in developed economies around the world had finished down. Here in Canada, the benchmark S&P TSX Composite Index dropped by 1.7%. Some Canadian economists are predicting a Canada-U.S. trade war will push the country's economy into a recession. Yesterday, in an interview on B&M Bloomberg, Randall Bartlett, who is deputy chief economist at Desjardins, predicted a recession in Canada by the middle of this year. And this morning, Doug Porter, chief economist at Bank of Montreal, said, quote, if the announced tariffs remain in place for 1 year, the economy would face the risk of a moderate recession. Finally, the Canadian dollar actually managed to trade higher versus the U.S. dollar today. The loonie was priced at 69.16 cents in the late afternoon Eastern Time. The dollar, however, has weakened by 3.5% against the U.S. dollar since Donald Trump first declared his intention to hit Canada, Mexico, and China with tariffs. That was a post on his Truth Social account on November 25th last year, about 3 weeks after he was elected, but well before he took office. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for today. The Canadian dollar traded up to 69.16 cents U.S. That was up by 0.12 cents U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude oil fell by 11 cents U.S. to $68.26 U.S. per barrel. And Western Canadian Select, the Canadian grade of heavy oil, closed at $54.20 U.S. per barrel. That was a drop of $2.11. As for stock markets, the S&P TSX Composite Index in Toronto closed at 24,572 points. That was a drop of 429 points, or 1.7%. And that's the latest in business. I'm Paul Bagnall at BNN Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
In sports, the Raptors will be looking for a second straight win when they take on the Orlando Magic tonight.
Quickly, off the window.
The Raptors are coming off that 104-102 win over the Magic on Sunday. Tip-off for tonight's game is set for just after 7 p.m. in Orlando. And a new exhibition opening at the Hockey Hall of Fame is sure to stir some Canadian pride.
The newly engraved Four Nations Face-Off Cup is on display, along with a number of artifacts from last month's tournament, which was won by Team Canada. CTV's Mike Walker has the story.
It was a magical and memorable moment in international hockey. A tournament win for Canada against a backdrop of political tensions with the U.S.
Very, very emotionally charged. There's a lot that was behind that tournament, and it didn't disappoint.
Now artifacts from the NHL's inaugural Four Nations Face-Off that showcase the best on best are part of a new exhibit at the Hockey Hall of Fame, with the centerpiece, the championship trophy.
This tournament has become so much more than just a tournament, and the excitement it's created over those 10-day period is pretty amazing.
The Four Nations Cup arriving at the hall today, freshly engraved with the names of Team Canada.
It was made right here in Toronto. It was just engraved last night, and we just got it here this morning.
The collection includes game jerseys worn by players from Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the U.S., a helmet and gloves used by the Americans' Tkachuk brothers in the final, as well as equipment worn by Canada's Drew Doughty, Colton Priako, and Devon Tays.
They were thrilled and honored to represent their country. We're thrilled to preserve hockey history, and I think the guys understood that when we were requesting items from them. And to have it on display here almost a week after the game was done is pretty amazing.
And that also includes a champagne bottle from Canada's championship celebration.
So that was the first champagne bottle that was popped in the dressing room after Crosby brought the trophy into the dressing room, and they handed it to me. And
Go Canada!
Some patriotic hockey fans were lucky to get up close with the artifacts before the exhibit officially opens to the public on Thursday.
Very impressive. It's glad we won it.
A lot of patriotism feeling right now.
Being able to have the opportunity to see something like this, it's inspiring.
And throughout the March break, fans will have an opportunity to take a picture with the Four Nations Cup before the collection permanently moves to the Hall of Fame's World of Hockey exhibit. Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
Just ahead, conducting things for The Lion King and leading an orchestra. How this maestro made her story his story. That's coming up. Finally tonight, after more than 25 years on stage, Disney's The Lion King musical is having a first.
Courtesy of a conductor, a woman who recently lifted the baton. CTV's Andrea Case has the story.
When I asked pianist Joy Brown to play something simple like Happy Birthday, this is what I got.
I started piano when I was 4, and I was classically trained. I have my associate with the Royal Conservatory in piano performance, and then I went to Humber for jazz.
Now her musical path has led her into the orchestra pit at the Princess of Wales Theatre, first as a pianist, but on February 22nd, Brown made her debut as a conductor for The Lion King, the first black female to lead the orchestra in the show's history. Brown is not only a talented musician, she is also a nurse practitioner.
Can I give a shout out to Black Creek Community Health
Yes,
Center?
you can give a shout out
Hi,
to
guys.
Black. There was a time when Brown never thought she could be a professional pianist.
I wanted to be a classical pianist and tour, and I remember being told, well, you're not Chinese and you're not Eastern European, so no, you'll never make it.
But she would not be denied. She's also a producer and arranger. She studied conducting, and today the assistant conductor for The Lion King. As for her debut with the baton, she was given a couple of weeks' notice, and her family took in the show. By the time the intermission came, there was a party backstage.
Intermission was a whole bunch of noise and Joy song happening and cake. So it was cake? Yeah, cake and intermission. It was madness. It was absolute madness. It was madness.
Is there usually cake at intermission?
No, this was like a big deal. This was a big deal. And when they announced, and Joy's going to be doing her debut, Sean gets on, he goes, and this is like a huge thing because she'll be like the first Black female. And there was like screams all throughout. We got to the very last finale now, and I was just like, all of a sudden I just took the and then I was getting ready to cry. I'm like, hold it together, girl, because you still have to finish. We still have to do the vows, right?
In the entertainment world, when somebody gets a big break and it all works out, they say a star is born. Well, you can say that about Joy Brown. So much so, she's been back in the pit since her first time, and she'll be conducting again twice more this week. Andrea Case, CTV News.
Wonderful.
It is. Congratulations to Joy. All right, the weather, not much of a joy, I think, for those who maybe have to drive in it and those who really worry about flooding when we get a whole bunch of rain.
Absolutely. So we're going to be keeping a close eye on water levels tomorrow. Waking up tomorrow morning, it's also going to be a little bit soggy. Here's a current look at the satellite and radar imagery. We're getting some mixed precipitation the closer you get to the shoreline of Lake Ontario and the border with Quebec. Here's one more look at that special weather statement that remains in place for tonight. Nathan and Michelle, lots of rain in the forecast over the next little bit here.
We appreciate the heads up. Thank you, Lindsay. That's it for us. But you can join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching. Have a great night.